So whenever you get to the left of the Democratic Party and you're a threat to them, they will immediately smear you as being a right-winger. Somehow you are surreptitiously and nefariously propping up the right wing while pretending to be left-wingers. That's all they have. They did that to me. They did it to, first of all, they did it to Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan, he comes out, he endorses Bernie Sanders. What do? They immediately, he voted for Bernie Sanders. First, he said he liked Tulsi Gabbard, who was to the left of the Democratic Party. Then he endorses Bernie Sanders, votes for him, and then they smear him as a right-winger. Right? You saw, he's transphobe, he's a misogynist, he's a sexist, and he's a right-winger. That's the same thing they did to Bernie, same thing they did, and then they did it to me. So here it is. I got to their left, and I made a big impact with Force the Votes, and everybody knows who we are, and everybody knows that the squad are frauds, and the Justice Democrats are a failed experiment. Everyone knows that. Even the founders of the Justice Democrats are admitting that now. Dirtback left stards are flirting with the right. And look at that. What a nice picture.
Flirt away.
I'll flirt with that motherfucker. Are you kidding me? Next time somebody tells me to go fuck myself, I'm going to get that picture. I'll bang that guy. You kidding me? So they did that to me, and now they're doing it to Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is now leading in the polls to be mayor of New York. And what do they do to him? They get their rag, the Politico, which is now a DNC frickin' rag, says how Yang charmed the right on his road to political stardom. Well, this is the first sentence. Ready? This is the first sentence from this article. Andrew Yang's road to fame was paved with right-wing podcasts. Wow. That's the first sentence and the first paragraph. That's the whole paragraph. That's what they want you to know. He is in bed with right-wingers, and he should be dismissed. And he certainly should be in trouble. That's what political... Here's the next paragraph. Before he joined the New York City's mayor race in January or appeared on a presidential debate stage during the Democratic primary, Andrew Yang reached an audience of millions through shows that promoted a strongly anti-progressive point of view. And, they make that sound like that's bad. When I grew up politically... It was considered a badge of honor if you could turn a right-winger into being a lefty. That's considered a badge of, you bring like when Bernie Sanders went to Fox News. And then Fox News does their own poll, and they find out 71% of Americans are for single-payer health care. Because Bernie Sanders went and talked to them, and he explained, so you're supposed to bring the message. Like when I went on Tucker Carlson, and I argued for Julian Assange's pardon because he's a real journalist, and Tucker Carlson, the number one conservative news host, says he changed his mind based on the strength of my argument. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So Andrew Yang brings his ideas to anti-progressive shows. That's what you're supposed to do. They're trying to make it seem like something nefarious. During one interview, Yang said, "There are many elements of Trump voters that I completely get and empathize with," before describing people who had become disaffected with corruption and checked out. So that's also bad, right, Aaron? You're not supposed to identify with any elements of Trump voters. You're not supposed to do that. That's bad, right, Aaron?
Yeah, they want this siloed way of interaction with politics and media where you only speak to people who are already on your side and already only fall within a very narrow category of people, which is coastal liberals with their own set of concerns, and not try to reach people who are outside of you. Now, when I say all this, I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing Andrew Yang, because I actually can't stand Andrew Yang.
I'm not on board with Andrew Yang either.
But I agree with your point that to go after someone for trying to reach people, it speaks to the liberal. It speaks to the liberal myopia that just is the reason we got Donald Trump, is because liberals want to live in this fantasy world where Hillary Clinton was this amazing candidate, and then when she lost, instead of looking honestly at what the problems were with her and her wing of the party, it was all the Russians' fault. Let's blame the Russians now. And that's the same thing now. Is anybody who tries to actually reach people and their concerns is doing some kind of sacrilege. It's a cult mentality.
He's talking to millions and according to their own article, he's talking to millions and millions of Americans.
Yeah.
Not Saudi Arabians, not Russians, not Venezuelans, not Germans. He's talking to millions and millions of Americans with his political message.
Jimmy, if we're talking about Andrew Yang, though, can I just give a shout out to Diane Morales, who is a real progressive, a real lefty who was in the New York mayor's race. She's awesome. And I recommend people check her out. She hasn't gotten very much media attention, but she's like an actual progressive, unlike Andrew Yang, who think has this weird populist shtick, but I don't think he stands for anything really good.
Yeah, it's not weird. He has a populist stick, and I get it. We've challenged him when he came on our show about the minimum wage and how he pays for his UBI is regressive, and so he, but there's a usefulness to Andrew Yang, and meaning like he raises people's consciousness about what's wrong with the system, and he also his UBI idea was a big help to get people to think that way, even though the way he pays for his UBI is wrong.
Right,
so
okay.
Yang made appearances on Dave Rubin. This is from Politico. Yang made appearances on Dave Rubin, The Ben Shapiro Show, The Joe Rogan Experience, and Tucker Carlson Tonight to promote his candidacy. Wow, somebody wants to get elected. It's now reaching out to voters across the spectrum. And this is somehow bad.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, the Joe Rogan Experience endorsed and voted for Bernie Sanders.
And, Jim, you can see it. You can see how this translates to audience numbers. Like, look at all the progressive or liberal shows that only talk to each other and only interview each other and only have, each other on as guests. You see it in their view numbers now on YouTube. They don't reach that many people. If you want to reach people, you have to show an open mind and a willingness to acknowledge other people's humanity, especially those you don't agree with. And you don't just shut people off whose views you aren't totally in line with. You talk to them. That's the whole point of politics. It's not to, it's not high school. It's not, if you want to have a clique, then you go back to high school and find friends and talk amongst yourselves. But in media and politics, the whole point is to interact with people. And try to win people over to your side.
Well, you saw what happened to me when I interviewed. I interviewed a Boogaloo Boy. They made it sound like I joined the Boogaloo Boys.
Yeah, people went crazy. Yeah.
I just interviewed a guy.
Yeah.
All I did was interview him. That's all I did. I didn't join them. I didn't endorse their organization. I didn't marry his sister. I didn't fucking do anything. I interviewed a guy.
Yeah.
And but that is what Chomsky talks about, what the liberal press is there to do, Aaron. You know that. They're there to set the parameters of the debate. Mm-hmm. So now you're not allowed to talk to anybody who we did seem a deplorable. Mm-hmm. So I had talked to a deplorable, and how dare you, even though Joe Biden had half the Republican Party at his own convention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is from Politico. Even more bullshit. Here it is. I want to show you. It's fun. By then, these shows had built a reputation. So he appeared on all these shows, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson. By then, these shows had built a reputation as highly critical of progressive policies and woke culture, a viewpoint that had built them a collective nationwide audience of millions. And first of all, Joe Rogan is a progressive. He voted for Bernie Sanders, said he loves AOC and Tulsi Gabbard. This is just garbage. Also, any political consultant is going to tell you, if you want to get elected president, only go on shows where your point of view is reflected in its entirety. That's how you appeal to the masses. Remember when Elizabeth Warren boycotted Fox News? And that worked out perfect for her. That's how you're supposed to do it. She finished 4th in her home state. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make normal politics sound scary and nefarious because why? The guy who's not a Democrat for real, the guy who's the outsider to the Democratic Party, is in the lead. That's what this is. He didn't pay his dues as a Democrat, and he's telling truths that the Democrats don't want him to tell. So here we go. Yang's podcast appearances were hosted by a loose collective of political commentators immortalized in a New York Times profile as the intellectual dark web, a term coined by podcast host and Thiel Capital manager Eric Weinstein. Oh, that's where Eric Weinstein comes from? I didn't even know that. In an interview with Politico this week, Andrew Yang characterized his media strategy as an underdog's effort to boost his profile while broadening his appeal beyond Democrats. That's exactly what it is. I think the Democratic Party needs to try and gravitate away from identity politics and towards things that would actually bridge the gap. And that's what they don't want you to do, Andrew. That's why they're coming at you. I don't think it's a great way to try and build consensus or bring people together or get big policies across the finish line. And I think it's a kind of stupid way to try and win elections, Yang said. He's saying by relying on identity politics. That's what he's saying. Also, I was trying to frankly get people to pay attention to my campaign and the ideas about automation and universal basic income, he said. Yang did not distance himself from his comments and said he did not regret his appearances. Wow. How dare he not reject and denounce himself for talking to other Americans who don't agree with him politically.
This is what liberal politics now. It's just tattletaling and scolding for people for talking to the wrong people. And it bothers me that this is benefiting people who I don't even like Andrew Yang, who at least has the sense to realize that it's good to speak to a wide audience and to get his message out. That's a good thing. At least he recognizes that. I wish people whose ideas I agree with, like progressives, people who support Medicare for all, people who, unlike Andrew Yang, oppose charter schools, people who, unlike Andrew Yang, support the human rights of Palestinians. Andrew Yang is anti-BDS. But I wish people with my politics could have the sense to talk to as many people as they can, because that's what politics is. And it's, you've been talking about this for a while, this self-defeating mentality of the Democrats to not fight for anything and then to shun efforts to try to reach people. It's a bad recipe, because in 2020, there was something unique. There was a guy named Donald Trump who mishandled a pandemic. And if not for the pandemic, I think he would have been in a much better position. In fact, there's a new book out called Lucky. It's about Joe Biden's candidacy. It's by the same people who wrote that book Shattered, about the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016, which told us that basically within hours of Hillary Clinton losing to Trump, that her team gathered together and decided that they were going to blame Russia for their loss instead of themselves. And this new book, Lucky, quotes one of Biden advisors who says that, I'm paraphrasing, but COVID-19 was the best thing that could happen to him politically. Because without COVID-19, you think Trump would have lost that one? I don't think so.
No, it was COVID.
And so
COVID
in 2022, Trump is not going to be on the ballot. And what are Democrats giving people? They're scolding people who try to reach other people who don't necessarily vote for them. And they're caving on things, as you pointed out, on like a $15 minimum wage. So it's not a good omen.
Well, here is, you want to know who really is flirting with the right wing? It's the frickin' head of the party. It's the head of the party. Talk about war birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? How about this? How about Kasich and Biden team up?
Yeah.
That guy was their number one guy at the goddamn convention. They thought he was going to get them Ohio. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
They brought on John Kasich. Couldn't be more anti-worker.
Yeah.
Biden Schumer vow continued bipartisan outreach after no Republicans back relief bill. So they want to work with that, but you can't even, Andrew Yang can't even go on a podcast. So Joe Biden can literally not only flirt, but work with and pledge support and ask for support from actual powerful right wingers. But Andrew Yang talks to some fucking jagoff podcasters with zero power. And you are in trouble. Oh boy. So, don't forget that Democrats and Republicans used to be one party, and not much has changed. And the Schumer, he's vowing to continue bipartisan outreach. They don't need it. Anyway. All right, there you go. That's what they're doing to Andrew Yang. So now you see the playbook, right? They did it to me a couple times now, right? They try to smear you as a conspiracy theorist. Well, they can't do that to Andrew Yang, right? They can't smear him as a conspiracy theorist or a Russian, but they can't smear him as somehow he's a little too friendly with right-wingers. Bad. That's shameful. So now you see the playbook, right? Hey, Joe Rogan got to the left of the Democratic Party, smear him as a right-winger misogynist. Hey, Jimmy Dore got it to the left wing of the Democratic Party, smear him as a right-winger misogynist. Hey, Andrew Yang is leading all the Democrats in the New York mayor race, smear him as a guy who's getting in bed with the right wing. And right now, there's the go ahead.
Well, it's funny. I've never before ever said to someone else who, you're responsible for someone else's opinions.
Never.
Right? This is a new principle that's only been introduced recently with people like us because we go on Tucker Carlson. All of a sudden, because we commit the crime of speaking to Tucker Carlson and his millions of viewers, now we're all of a sudden responsible for everything else he says. That's a principle I don't see applied pretty equally.
In that article, it said they talked about Dave Rubin, and they said Dave Rubin, who has interviewed white nationalists, this and that, and Bob, and they named everything anti-this and anti-trans activists, and I go, yeah, he does an interview show. That's what, if you're a journalist, you could say that about fucking Walter Cronkite. You could say that about anybody who's supposed to be doing interviews. They're supposed to be interviewing fucking people from all walks of life. Phil Donahue. I grew up on Phil Donahue. I know who David Duke is because he was a regular on the fucking Phil Donahue show. This idea that interviewing people who are outrageous is wrong, people who are way out of line with you politically, that is again, that is the establishment trying to control the narrative, and they're trying to keep you in your siloed away and fighting each other. That's all that is. And they're really ramping that up now because that's all they got. Because as soon as the Americans realize that this is a class war and not a left-right war, the establishment is fucked. And they're coming closer to realizing that. And shows like this are helping, and that's why they got to extra smear us. That's why they got to give extra money to the Young Turks so they fucking protect politicians, smear actual lefties, be pro-war, anti-union. And that's the kind of lefty journalism. Or same thing with The Intercept. They're very pro-war. They're conspiracy theorists. They red bait their political enemies. They smear activists like Breonna Joy Gray, like Ryan Grimm did. Just blatantly lied about her, lied about forced to vote. They did that all out in public. And so that's all they have left. That's all The Intercept has left. That's all the establishment has left. That's all the Young Turks, MSNBC. That's all they have left. The Politico, these fucking broken, obvious tools and willing arms of the Democratic Party. That's all they have left is smear tactics. That's all they have. And no matter whenever you tell the truth, you're going to be a misogynist, a racist, a white supremacist, conspiracy theorist, and you're flirting with the right. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.